Alrighty, so it's writing week. Well, I guess it's writing half week again. I'm mixed feelings about this. I've been working on and I was super excited. I really got a lot of different stories that I had in my head, even beyond the first set that I had. Like, I remember talking about having like 4 or 5 story universes that could be compiled together into a shared universe, so that I could combine a lot of my modern time fantasy, urban fantasy, magical realism. I don't know how to phrase that, but I was looking at ways that I could maybe combine a few of them into a shared universe, so it's not quite like 12. See, the thing is, I have a tendency to come up with a lot of stories. And when I'm writing these stories, the story is about the character and the events that happen to that character to make a good story. And sometimes that's a series of stories, a story arc that stretches out over several books for the character's journey. And so I've come up with these things, and then I have these collections of 20 or 30 different stories that are either fantasy or science fiction or all of these things. And then I sit there and I think, like, wow, this is a lot of different universes. And each one of them might be good for their story they're in. But in my mind, that feels more like a blip, like a story that's there for a book or maybe 2 or 3 books. To carry the character arc and the setting narrative that I want to do for that. And so you have this, if you were to visualize it graphically as a timeline of stories, it would be these little dots all over the place. And it just looks like a mess. And some of them share themes, and you could try to connect this one to this one and this one. And so you have like 3 or 4 of them connected. But then this one connects to this one really well, and this one connects to that one really well, but it connects to this one and this one as well. And so you're like, okay, so these 2 could connect, but these 2 can't. And so trying to find a way to network these stories together and mesh them so that they work, and in a sense build a larger setting with more character and timeline and mythology to it. There's an appeal to organizing this all together in a way that's meaningful and valuable to other stories and flesh out the world that those other stories exist in. Because, oftentimes you'll write a story and you'll glaze over some fact. It's sort of like in the Star Wars movies where, like, you go into the cantina and there are all these other various people in this hive of scum and villainy. And one of my favorite books when I was younger was a series of short stories collected. There were the Cantina, the Tales of Bounty Hunters or something like that, and Jabba's Palace, Tales from Jabba's Palace. And they were basically, they took the 3 movies, the 3 Star Wars movies, the first one, the second one, and the third one, Star Wars, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And each one of them has a scene like that. The Cantina is in the New Hope. The bounty hunters on the bridge of Darth Vader's Star Destroyer, and then Jabba's palace full of all the aliens and hangers-on there. They're stories for all those people. And for a lot of those people, like Luke Skywalker's family and Darth Vader and the Empire's new Death Star are background stories for them Like, they have their own stories going on in their own lives, and these background stories are not super important to them. They're not the biggest events in their lives. So I always found that sort of like, that's good world building. You've built a world where all sorts of people's stories can happen in the background, and there's a whole universe of individual stories happening out there. And the big story that we're following in the movies isn't the be all and end all of that whole universe. Dude, it's 10:30. Do not rev your engine outside. So that whole universe of things going on is, to me, like a beautiful setting. And you could easily tell a story of a Twi'lek escaped slave in the Star Wars universe, because we've set up the fact that their population is oftentimes enslaved in other works. And so I kind of love the idea of building a big universe where I don't have to necessarily tell the story of how the elves work, or where sorcerers come from, or what's the story of magic in this universe, because in the grander universe, you can spell out little bits of it as it's pertinent to the story without having to, dredge up some side story every time you do that. And so I went looking through some of these story ideas I've had and started to find ways to stitch them together. And then, as sometimes happens, I get really excited when things really start to gel into a greater whole. And so I was really into this. I built this universe that it feels like every day that I dabble with it a little bit more, it tightens up and fits together even better and better. And I got to pull in things that I didn't think at first were in the same universe, but really fit and answer some questions that were asked by other stories. And I was just sort of like, this is going really, really well. And then I'm like, okay, so I got to get ready to get back to the Goblin's Daughter, the story that I'm writing right now. And with a sense of where that's supposed to fit in the grand scheme of things, I went back and went, okay, so this is going to be a sort of a magician's detective story. I was thinking along the lines of Columbo, where somebody dies and he's figuring it out, and he's asking questions and appearing to be a bumbling, incompetent detective, but all the while he's assembling the clues that bring us to a point where we get a sense that, oh, he's brilliant. He's picked it just right in the way to set up everything that works out in the end. I was thinking that's what I was doing, but in the process of trying to figure out how this story goes together, and I don't know if they're all going to be like this if I do any more stories for this character, but I was looking through some of the true crime format with actual, based on a true story concepts, and the things that fit with the rules of the universe that I built and the story that I was going for. It got dark. And the thing that sucks about it for me right now, like looking at it, is it's not just that it's dark. It's dark because the real stories that it's based off of are dark. Like, there are some horrible people in this world. And it's not a lot of fun to realize just how twisted our world is and the horrible things that happen in it. And so it's a little depressing to get into the mix on this story. I don't want it to be that bad. I gotta see if I can. It's sick to think that I'm writing a murder mystery, semi-fantasy, magic-based story, but I gotta soften the elements of it, because the real world is more horrific than a world with monsters in it. It's a little bit of a hard pill to swallow, I think. But yeah, so I think I've got a lot of that lined up. I think the thing I wanted to do, like, I've got the crime, I've got the victim, I've got the criminal, I've got the detective, I've got the theme of adventure in a world that you don't belong to. I've even got world building elements of, how do the goblins relate to the magical realm and the human realm, and how do humans fit in the whole thing? I've got a lot of that figured out. The one thing I think I really still need to figure out for this is, what's the magic trick, the completely mundane human stage magician magic trick, or I can figure out one or two of magic tricks to flesh out the fact that this character can seem to be a sorceress, but I need that one that's the linchpin in solving the crime and catching the villain. I haven't quite figured that part out yet. And I'm hesitant to really start writing the rest of the story out until I figure that out, because the rest of the story, it's not just, it's not just the turning point in the story where things turn around. It informs the rest of the story. It informs the abilities and the character traits of some of the main characters. It informs on how the Fey world that this character is finding themselves enmeshed in deals with a human who's able to wield what seems to be sorceress abilities. That magician's trick is sort of like it's funny because sometimes I'll build a story around a gimmick. This time I built a story in search of a gimmick. Like, I've got the whole story figured out except for the gimmick in the middle. And without that middle, the whole thing can fall apart relatively easily. And, it's the keystone, so everything else has to fit up flush to it. So I gotta wait before I build the rest of it until I got that figured out. So I'm going to try to figure out some of that tonight, because at this point I've got like 3 days left to do writing. So I'm probably not going to get it all done right now. So, I mean, I could do a 3 days solid writing if I were doing nothing else, but I'm not doing nothing else. I've got videos to work on, and I've got the exercise video to work on, the writing videos tonight, prep for the cooking videos for the end of the week, and I want to see if I can get back started on doing videos for the Roving Jack channel. And I want to try to get better at handling my social media for the channels. And so that's when I get the system of everything worked out just about right, that's going to be roughly like 3 to 4 hours of work a day for these channels, which isn't bad. But I also have to do things like watch a movie, which is oftentimes 2 hours, or read a book, which can be sometimes 12 to 24 hours, sometimes even upwards of 36 hours to complete. And then play a board game, try a product. You know, I have to include time to do those, and that's probably another 1 to 2 hours a day, depending on which one. Like I said, the reading can sometimes consume a whole day. And so figuring out where I'm going to fit that in with the time to do the writing. Like I've done 50,000 word novels in 3 days before. But I literally woke up, pulled out my laptop, started writing, took a moment to stretch, go get something to eat, which I usually prep days in advance so that I have 3 or 4 days of prepped food so that I can just go get something, nuke it to warm it up, eat it while I'm working, and then, you know, pile up a few dishes over a couple days and sit back down and just write. And you write through breakfast, you write through lunch, you take bathroom breaks, you take a shower every now and then, maybe make something to eat if you have a point where you're stumped and you need to get away, and then you sit right back down and you just keep writing. You write till it's, you know, an hour and a half to 2 hours past your bedtime. You go down, you sleep for about 4.5 hours to 6 hours. You get back up, and as soon as you wake up in the morning, you sit up, you get the laptop, and you just start writing again. And you do it solid for 3 days. You can get more than 50,000 words that way. It's usually best done for a story where you've either gotten all of it worked out ahead of time and you're just writing to fill the space between the key points in your story, or you're writing a story where it doesn't matter. You just write what comes to you, should come next, and it doesn't matter if it makes sense or if it conflicts with what happened earlier. You can come back and adjust details to make them fit. I've done that. I could probably do it again, but not if I'm going to continue to work on the rest of my workload. So I'm not going to get this novella or novel done in the next 4 days. But I'm going to have a start in on it, and then I'm going to have a fully fleshed out skeleton for it. Like an outline, a full outline of how the story is going to go. And I hope to finish off that by the end of the week. And then starting on the 4th is another writing week. And I'm hoping to do a short story a day for a week there, just to get back into it. Or write a story a day. I don't know that they're all going to be short stories. Some of them may be the intros to longer stories. We shall see. But I mean, I'm digging that's a stupid way to phrase that. I'm really liking how the universe is being fleshed out. And the more I play with each of these series in this greater universe, the more I'm loving how rich and vibrant this universe is getting. The murder mystery aspect is still a little hard for me to do, especially because it's based on real world situations and monstrous human beings. Yeah, I find it interesting. Well, I mean, part of it is, I've watched some of those old Law and Order TV shows every now and then, and they're okay TV shows, and I like that there's a depth to that kind of storytelling where you can do it for years because there's always a story you can tell in there, and you can make it a compelling story, and you can use it to address real world concerns. But I never quite realized just to what degree, like, writing in that mindset exposes you to the sickness in the human mind. It's just sort of a surprise. I'm not a delicate flower by most measures, but I do think I'm a little bit of a caring soul, and it's disheartening to see that the world is as ugly as it can be sometimes. I think part of what I might be able to do to alleviate some of that response, because as I was building the outline for this story, I mean, it's going to cover topics like the Indian caste system, the harassment and attacks on Native American women who live on reservations and work off the reservations. A lot of people don't know what goes on in those types of situations, and it's pretty distasteful as to how some people live in this world under constant threat of the worst we have as human beings. Some of this story is going to touch a little bit on people of mixed heritage and their struggle to find where they belong, and oftentimes feeling like they don't belong in either side of their heritage. And some of it's going to cover topics like people of mixed heritage who want to connect with their heritage but just aren't permitted because they're considered an outsider. And some of it's going to cover topics of ethnic traditions and the disrespect from one culture toward another. It's going to discuss and it's not going to confront some of these in this one story, but the world that it's being built in will lead to exposing some of those topics as part of the greater world that will be covered in other stories and in other story arcs. So it's painting a hard world with the real grit of the real world involved in it. But in some of that, there's the opportunity to turn around some of those things. So like the villain in The Goblin's Daughter is going to be of a certain race, a certain class, a certain caste, with certain ambitions to be part of a certain chunk of the world. And I think it will be soothing to my soul to tell a story or some stories of the same race, caste, culture, and people looking to get into certain courses in their life who aren't evil. Like, to show that the bad in the world is the exception to the rule, not the rule. Tell good stories of people who, for all other markers, would parallel the villains in the story. But they don't. And the story they're in has its challenges, but doesn't embody that same level of callous, soulless evil. So I think there are ways that, if I just keep building in that universe and build different types of stories in that universe, that I could potentially alleviate some of the soul crushing aspect of true crime story writing. And, at that point, it becomes a little less of telling a dark, gritty story for the sake of a dark, gritty story. And it's more of a don't look away from the gritty corners in an otherwise multi-level, beautiful world. So that's sort of where I'm working on right now. I think I'm going to probably see over the course of, I've been playing around with making the videos. I don't know that I'll do them every day these next 4 days. I may just, because they're not going to be live streamed, so I don't need to worry about doing them that way. But I do need to record them. And I want to start setting them up and putting them up by Wednesday. And the fitness video I want to try to do early this week. So it's a lot of work right now. It's a lot of work to work on these. And it's sort of my own fault because I let myself get behind like this. And then I decided I was going to try to catch up rather than just pick up where I left off. So I double and sometimes quadrupled up my workload. Because ideally what I'd be doing during the week is one live video per day and one edited video per weekday. And I don't know why I keep calling them edited videos, because I'm not doing them edited anymore. Not really. Although the video game one actually turned out pretty well. I recorded that one, downloaded it, edited it, exported it, and uploaded it, and it seemed to do okay. So I might be able to do that. It's just I want to minimize how much work I have to do in the editing, because that's the part that slows it down. Like I've been on here for almost 30 minutes at this point. If I were to be editing this video afterwards, it's easily 3 hours of work. Every 10 minutes of video is about an hour of editing, if you build it that way. Now, if I record them as if they're not going to be edited and then take them out and tighten them up a little bit in editing, I think that's a better way to do it. And I think I'm going to be doing more of that kind of thing in the future, because it saves me a whole boatload of work time. But anyway, I'm going to go look up a little more information to figure out the videos. I'm going to work a little bit on my figuring out what magic trick I need to use for the character story. Do a little more world building design. And yeah. Maybe contemplate how I'm going to edit up my exercise video, because that one's going to be heavily edited. I don't have a lot of choice. That was bits and pieces over the last 6 weeks. I don't have the luxury of having been able to just record that in one 15-minute sitting. Would have been nice, but it is what it is. I am about to step out and get to work on these things tonight, and I will be plowing through a lot of stuff over the next 72 hours. I think that's sort of where we're at. All right, so thanks for stopping by and watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Probably again at a 10:30 video for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. On Wednesday, I might start posting up at around 8 p.m. videos about ways to make videos. And sometime during the course of Monday or Tuesday, I want to aim for Monday afternoon, I think, for the fitness video. Because Tuesday is going to be Views Day night. And then Wednesday, I think the goal is to start uploading the video making videos. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday will be cooking videos at night. Possibly the video videos earlier in the day. And that should get me through till Sunday the 4th, where it should, at that point, be a live video Sunday night. And maybe one video during the day. But Monday becomes one during the day, live at night for writing. One during the day on Tuesday, Views Day night, writing Tuesday night. Wednesday is one day, one night, so on and so forth. So at that point, weekdays are one a day, except for Views days where it's 2. Actually, no. I deliberately set it up so that the Views Day is the daytime video for that. So that shouldn't be an issue. And then Friday is the other day of the week where I have to figure out what I'm doing for the daytime. And then weekends are set up so that they shouldn't have something during the day unless I'm catching up on something or missed something. At least Sundays and Fridays are my blank days. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to call it here for tonight. Take care. See you sometime tomorrow. Probably 10:30.